Well, good afternoon, everyone. I'm delighted to say that this afternoon we are joined by the wonderful John Reid, the new head of the National Manufacturing Institute of Scotland, who joined the team there back in August, I think it was, John, is that right?
That's right, yeah, joined in August.
Super, and in fact joined it from the work that he was doing with the Michelin Scotland Innovation Park over in Dundee. So a man with a rich history of involvement in innovation. John, glad to have you here with us this afternoon. We've got about half an hour to talk through some of the things that you are hearing in these early months, which have been incredibly unusual, I think, for most businesses, and the vision that you see for NMIS going forward. So first of all, a daft question, I guess, one that you would normally have when you start in a role, which was, what was it about the NMIS challenge that attracted you to the role?
Well, I think you've outlined a little bit about my history, Rosa, but I also did 32 years working for Michelin Tires in the UK and abroad. And so my entire career has been manufacturing. I'm passionate about it. It's what I've done for a long time, and the role in NMIS in Glasgow seemed like a huge opportunity that I couldn't pass to get involved in supporting manufacturing in Scotland.
Well, it's great to have that heritage on the team, and as I say, you've joined at a most unusual time for all businesses. Certainly an awful lot of manufacturing firms will have had to make some quite rapid adaptations to the way that they operate, the way that they do business in the here and now, both because of COVID, but also because of other changes in the regulatory landmark. What are the sorts of issues that they're bringing to you at the moment?
So yeah, you're right, and we work across a very broad range of areas, Rosa. Outside of our normal core research programs, the main preoccupation of most of the companies we are dealing with at the moment is really all in and around developing their resilience and sustainability. Clearly, that's been driven by the huge disruption from COVID, Brexit, and also the challenge of developing our industry towards tackling the climate emergency.
Yeah.
A lot of what we are doing at the moment is engaging with companies around those themes. Some of the work we've done earlier in the pandemic in particular was around supporting manufacturers in Scotland to develop a supply chain to produce PPE. So prior to the COVID pandemic, there was little or no PPE production capability in Scotland. And as we all know, there were moments of crisis through the early pandemic when we couldn't actually put our hands on any of this equipment. So about 30 or so of our team worked pretty much full time with Scottish Government and agencies to actually build a capability in Scotland. And after a very few months, we were able to put in place a network of companies that were able to handle over 50% of all the PPE being consumed in Scotland. And that continues to exist today. So a really important step forward in terms of our fight against COVID, but also one that allowed us to create new manufacturing jobs in Scotland and effectively a whole industry that didn't exist prior to that work. So we've got some really great examples like that. At a more sort of basic level, Rosa, we're working on the nuts and bolts of developing resilience and then supporting companies to recover. The resilience really is about enhancing performance in the short and medium term. So put the tin hat on and get through the immediate crisis, and then help develop the agility and capability to exploit changes and transformation opportunities as the companies recover from where they are today. So that's where our work is focusing at the moment. Specific areas that companies are interested in, digitalisation is a big part of it, and process optimization. In terms of the digital offering, we've developed quite a capability within NMIS, and we currently have 23 digital experts within the team, which allows us to give this really important support to companies around Scotland.
So give me a feel. If I'm a manufacturer, let's imagine in Dundee, And I think that there may be an opportunity for me to use digital technologies better. What does that process look like?
I think the first thing to do is obviously you make contact with us, and we'll come back to that later on. But the thing I would say to companies is there's a lot of preconceptions about digital and Industry 4.0, and many organisations think it's only for big high tech modern companies with shiny new equipment. What I'd be saying specifically to the SMEs, so an SME in Dundee would be, don't rule yourself out of the digital technology area, because there are things that we can do. Much of the gains that you can make through applying digital to your processes can be actually applied to older machinery and current processes. It doesn't have to be shiny new equipment. So the message to the SMEs would be, don't rule yourself out of developing digital capability, and come to us, and we've got the capability to support you.
Yeah, I know that often smaller firms, actually larger firms too, think that it's going to cost many tens of thousands of pounds to embrace any form of new technology. And in fact, one of the conversations that I quite often have with firms is that for well under £1,000, they can begin their journey in ways that will actually save them money in terms of their normal production, just by using digital technologies better. So great to hear that you are spreading that message too. You touched on sustainability as one of the other issues that they're coming to you with. Now, we have all seen the challenge that we face, not just as a nation, but as a planet, in terms of decarbonising. But we've also seen some of the horrors of waste plastics and 101 other things that are damaging our environment. What are you picking up within NMIS?
So you're absolutely right. I mean, I think the climate emergency is no longer a debate. It's now government policy, and both UK and Scottish government have made it a priority of theirs. And companies can see from that more and more opportunities. So it is a challenge, but it is also a huge opportunity. The work that we're doing with organisations, really in sort of kind of two levels. One of them is around optimising and improving what you've currently got. So the idea of making your operation as it stands today more effective, less wasteful, and more efficient, and using some of the standard techniques, but also some of the new technologies that we've got. But in parallel, we're also looking with companies about how to support new initiatives, new technologies, new ways of doing things, and bringing in more innovation. So there's two streams. There's one which is about developing a more robust and sustainable approach right now. And I would, talking to SMEs, I would encourage SMEs to recognise the benefit of that, because anything that improves your reduction in waste and improves your productivity has a very immediate effect on your bottom line. You can make things very quickly. So it's not all about moving into hydrogen and all the fancy, sexy stuff. There's a lot of gains to be made by just making your own footprint today more sustainable, and we can support you in that. So a lot of the work that we're doing at the moment, Rosa, in this area is around recycling and remanufacturing. And our teams are supporting companies all the way through that journey, all the way through to the design of the products themselves. So supporting the designers so that they can build the capability into product from the ground up to be more readily recycled or remanufactured. And that's an area where we've got capability beyond our own site. So we're part of the high value manufacturing Catapult. It's a network of 7 world-class technical facilities around the UK. And there's a lot of work being done within that network. So we have the capability to signpost companies. If we don't have the particular answer they need, we can signpost them to other parts of that Catapult network.
So actually, you've got incredible reach into a much wider innovation network. I know, for example, that you do quite a bit of work with the aerospace industries, which are really trying to push forwards in terms of their decarbonisation at the moment. And I know that your team are working with the team down at the National Composites Centre in Bristol to make sure that they are harnessing some of the composites insights.
Yeah.
So I think that's a really good example of that use of the network that you just described. So good to hear it.
And I think what I would say, the facilities that we're talking about are genuinely world-class technology facilities.
Yeah.
We cover just about every aspect of manufacturing you can think of. So the point is, if we don't have the answer, we know someone that does have the answer.
Yeah.
And the other thing that we're working with companies on, and it's an important aspect of support, is particularly, again, referring back to SMEs, smaller companies maybe not have done some of this transformational work before. It's quite difficult to create the absolutely correct business plan and funding proposition. So we can also support a company to take its idea, help them enhance and develop their business plan, but then also support them in the delivery of a right first time funding application, which is clearly important, particularly at the moment when there is so much support and opportunity out there in terms of grants and funding from various government and other sources.
Yeah, that's a really, really important service actually, John, because I know from my time as a civil servant down in Westminster, but later in my time working in one of the major banks, that actually very often what you see coming forward from small businesses are funding propositions which probably are really good at their core, but are so poorly put together because they just do not have the time or the expertise to frame them. So a really, really valuable service for NMIS to deliver there. Are you helping them in other ways? The other thing that quite often comes up, apart from funding, links to access to skills, a real challenge for an awful lot of small businesses, particularly when we are talking about skills in the technology areas.
Absolutely, Rosa, and you know, any organisation that's evolving its technology or its products in the future has the challenge of matching that with the right skill sets and competence within the team. So we have a manufacturing skills academy within our portfolio, and all the way from coming to your site and developing a detailed diagnostic of your skills need, through to building bespoke training packages and then actually delivering the training and development that your staff need. There's also other opportunities that we can have in terms of delivering competence and capability support, which is knowledge transfer. So there's an opportunity there for, depending on the task, for some of our experts to work within your organisation alongside your teams and to impart that skills and capability real time to the team. Conversely, it could be that the situation would be better served by having one or two of your team in our facility and alongside our teams, and again sharing that competence and capability. So there's a lot of different things that we can bring to the table in terms of skills development for companies.
Hugely, hugely important, and often a really important barrier to them actually beginning that innovation journey that we were talking about. I mean, it's such a huge agenda. Where do you think the greatest opportunities are for businesses at the moment? If they are going to think about innovation, what are the themes that they might look at?
I think the first thing I would say is that innovation can be a challenge, particularly for smaller resource-strapped kind of companies. But the reality, as I see it at the moment, is there's never been a better time to innovate. There is so much support out there. There's so much recognition from government, particularly in terms of sustainability and the climate emergency, that something's got to be done and funding's going to be required to do it. So there's a lot of support out there for companies to get involved in new, more sustainable technologies. Clearly, digital is a big part of optimising process and efficiency going forward. So I would say digital and sustainable technology. And for those companies who need support, we're in a position to do that. So we can cover from helping you design your shop floor layout, develop your process, even design your products and prototype your products. We've talked about skilling the workforce. We've got that capability as well. And as I mentioned earlier on, we can also support the organisation in terms of sourcing the correct funding in a right first time kind of basis.
Now,
to see now it's a difficult time, but it's also a huge opportunity to get involved in innovation. And our job at NMIS is to take the burden off the company, particularly small companies, and de-risk that very important part of their transformation.
So important, it really is, because actually for an awful lot of companies, innovation is scary. And too often it's not the good news stories about innovation that get passed about in the networking sessions. It's the, oh, did you hear about blogs who had this failure and lost a lot of money? So really, really important to have that de-risking facility, as you call it, just at within reach of the small businesses that could use it to then grow and create the sorts of jobs that will really fuel the prosperity of different companies. Now, I'm very conscious, though, that NMIS is still in its infancy. We had some of the facilities that NMIS provides within the AFRC, the Advanced Forming Research Centre, as it was called, as part of Strathclyde University. NMIS kicked off back end of last year, really. What's the journey that NMIS is going to be travelling in?
In terms of our capability, competencies and skills within the team, we've actually got much of the capability ready now. So we're open for business, clearly. I would encourage companies to come to us right now, as and when they need us. The development of the physical facilities, so the building itself, that's being constructed at the moment. We've got probably another 18 months to wait until it's fully open. And when that is fully open, it will house a digital factory, so a physical space with machinery, equipment, and capability to showcase the digital technologies for the future, and ways and means of prototyping and applying that technology. There's also going to be a lightweight manufacturing centre, which we already have. We have it in an interim facility at the moment, which is all about understanding and exploiting the opportunities of lightweighting with new materials, etc. And that will be part of the facility itself. We've talked about skills, so there'll be a skills academy, so there'll be world-class facilities in the centre to allow us to upskill and develop the workforce. And the workshops themselves will give us the capability to actually take people's companies' ideas and turn them into realistic propositions, test beds to test the technology and develop the process, and prototyping and lots of different elements of the innovation process. So it's going to be a fantastic facility, Rosa. There's going to be large open spaces, there's going to be flexible working spaces, there's going to be plant and equipment. It's going to be a one-stop shop for manufacturers in Scotland and beyond. So the idea is to create a kind of a community of like-minded companies and individuals that will come together, innovate, share ideas, might be tackling the same kind of issues at the same time, leverage the opportunity of collaborating with each other, and use the facilities themselves to make progress and secure development of their manufacturing capability.
It sounds incredibly exciting. And certainly I know from my time in business that having the chance to talk with other people who are going through similar challenges or who are slightly further ahead of you in terms of the roadmap is incredibly helpful. And then that ability to connect into the wider expertise that's available within the high value manufacturing catapult, as you were saying a few moments ago, incredibly valuable for businesses. What do you think will happen with those businesses that turn their backs on innovation?
Well, I think that the risk is clear. Things are moving on. The expectations of manufacturing are becoming different. The challenges are different to what they were even a few years ago. The context is shifting quickly. If you don't innovate, if you don't change, if you don't make progress, then you're effectively going backwards. So my view is that, as I said earlier on, this is a huge opportunity to innovate. If you look particularly at the climate emergency and the drive to deliver more sustainable technologies, everyone's working on it. So if you're not part of that, then you're not going to get your share of that opportunity. So my kind of shout out to companies, government and investors is we need to be bold. We need to take a few risks, because if we don't take this opportunity, someone else will take it from us. So society is driving us towards a more sustainable environment. That is going to happen. Someone's going to make these things, someone's going to develop the technologies, and if it's not us, it's going to be someone else. So we need to be bold, and we need to take these decisions quickly and invest our time and efforts in those.
And does that just apply to companies that are already at the cutting edge? I mean, what are the sorts of projects that you're getting involved with?
No, absolutely not. I'm saying throughout the conversation so far, you know, SMEs need to see themselves as part of the solution, either as innovators themselves or part of the supply chains that support the bigger companies. There are opportunities all around you, and sustainability isn't just about new things, it's about doing things differently. And organisations like NMIS can support small companies to make quite significant changes, which will make them more robust in the future.
Indeed, and I know of work that's been done within your centre that has covered all sorts of things, from saving whiskey that might otherwise get spilt when filling a beer barrel, a very important thing to do in my view. Right the way through to helping a company lay out its factory floor so that it's as efficient as it can be, and the remanufacture and recycling of road signs for a third sector charity that's helping some of our former armed forces veterans. So incredible array of work that is being done within the team that you have there at NMIS. Are there parts of the manufacturing community that you're really keen to get hold of, above and beyond just SMEs in the broader sense?
I think just on that you know, you've pointed to a few case studies, and we have many. So there's a lot of examples of how the NMIS team have supported companies in Scotland, and I think what I would say is there's lots of future opportunity there. If we go back to the example I used of the development of the PPE supply chain in Scotland, one of the things we're working with Scottish Government on is how do we take that success and replicate it in other areas. So one of the pieces of work we're going to engage in is looking at the spend programmes of the government going forward and working out where are the capabilities and capacities in Scottish manufacturing to actually deliver those. Opportunities there for the future to build similar supply chains to the one we supported for the PPE, but looking at some of these more sustainable technologies. So my ask of the SMEs would be to make contact with NMIS, because the clearer we are in understanding the footprint and capability of manufacturing around us, the better we're going to be able to match those opportunities with specific companies and sectors. So I think there's huge scope going forward, Rosa, and we're interested in all manufacturing companies out there.
And as you say, very, very much the sort of thing that will help SMEs to grow, and that in turn helps the whole of the economy. I'm deeply struck by the fact that, you know, it's not so very long since every time that you got into a taxi and had a conversation with the unknown taxi driver, it would get on to the fact that, oh, we don't make anything anymore. That need not be the case. There is a real opportunity here for businesses of all shapes and all sizes. You've described it in relation to PPE, but I suspect that there are many other areas too.
Absolutely. No, I think that the scope is huge, Rosa. And by combining our long-standing manufacturing capability in Scotland and our engineering heritage with the opportunities that are coming, the funding support, you know, new technology, digitalisation, the opportunities are there. We need to just join the dots and connect the right opportunities with the right companies. So again, I would say to the guys out there listening, particularly SMEs, if you've not got a connection to NMIS, try and make one.
How do they do that, John?
It's really quite simple, Rosa. The website is nmis.scot, and if you go on nmis.scot, there's a form there that you can fill in to make your first communication with our team in Glasgow.
nmis.scot. I think that's a really easy one for people to remember. And if you've got an idea, but you need a bit of help to start translating that into a commercial reality without too much risk, as John has said, that's the website to get in touch with. Fill in that contact form and somebody from John's team will be back in touch with you. So we're still in interesting times, John. We all saw just immediately after Christmas, the third lockdown kick into gear. That's a worrying time for all businesses, but presumably it makes your operations at NMIS more difficult as well. What are the priorities going forward for you in 2021?
The priority for us is to support manufacturing in Scotland. One of the ways in which we are doing that is by supporting government and policy creators to build, to help manufacturers in Scotland. So the recently published manufacturing recovery plan, the NMIS team was part of that. So we had members of our team working on all the different work streams and elements of that recovery plan. So I think our priority in Scotland, Scottish manufacturing, is to support that recovery plan and to make it work. We have all the capabilities in NMIS to do that. All the different elements of that plan are covered by competence and resources within our team. So for me, the priority is to support Scottish manufacturing through that recovery plan.
John, the service that NMIS is already providing is outstanding. I know that it is already beginning to attract valuable, high quality inward investment into the area, and that will create jobs, it will create growth in Scotland, which is all to the good. Certainly, I know that there are many tens of thousands of nurses, healthcare officials or personnel and care home workers that are already personally very grateful for the work that NMIS does, with everything that you did to make sure that Scotland had good access to the PPE facilities and equipment that those teams needed. So brilliant work there. I think we will be relying on teams like that at NMIS to make sure that we emerge from these extraordinarily challenging times fitter, stronger, and ready for the future. As we close our conversation today, and thank you so much for giving me so much of your time, what is your one hope for the future for NMIS?
Clearly, this is one of the most extreme sets of circumstances any business can find itself in. I think the thing I hope is that we have the brave enough decision making and commitment to actually leverage the opportunities that are coming out of that. It's a moment of crisis, but it's also a huge opportunity. And I think it's an opportunity for manufacturing in Scotland. And if we get it right, if we support the companies, we have the right kinds of funding, the recovery plan works, there's opportunities to do really big and bold things in Scotland.
John, thank you. I think it is time for us all to be big and bold and stand up to the challenges that we face. Hugely grateful for the amount of time that you spent with us this afternoon. Ladies and gentlemen, John Reid from the National Manufacturing Institute for Scotland. Thank you.
Thank you, Rosa.